I'm standing in the middle of Paris right now, and it is 109 degrees Fahrenheit.
I've covered hurricanes, I've covered wildfires out west, but nothing, Tang, and I mean nothing, Tang, prepared me for what's happening in Europe right now.
This isn't just a hot summer. This is something else entirely. And I needed to see it for myself.
Here's what makes this so strange. Europe is used to mild summers, 70, maybe 8th degrees on a hot day pull. That's normal here. But this year, something broke. Cities that have never seen triple-digit heat are now living through it for days, sometimes weeks at a time.
And the thing is, Nind, not a single city here had any plan for something like this. This actually didn't come out of nowhere. The first wave hit back in late May.
Temperatures were already 10 to 15 degrees Celsius above normal, breaking spring records in multiple countries.
Everyone thought that was the peak.
Then, just weeks later, right before the summer solstice, a second wave hit. And this one was even worse. That's the one I'm standing in the middle of right now. This is a home goods store in central Paris. Look at this party. People are literally fighting over the last air conditioners on the shelf. Here's something most Americans don't realize. The vast majority of homes in Europe don't have central air. It was never considered necessary. Old buildings, thick stone walls, mild summers too. Air conditioning was a luxury, not a necessity. Until now, sales of portable ACs and fans have spiked so hard that stores are running out of stock across multiple countries. I talked to a store employee here who said they've sold more air conditioners in the last 2 weeks than they normally sell in an entire summer. Shipments are getting bought out within hours of arriving. People are driving to other cities just to find a unit in stock. So what's actually causing this? Meteorologists are calling it an omega block. And picture a massive dome of hot air to plume pulled up from the Sahara Desert, poot, that gets trapped in place by the shape of the jet stream. It just sits there. It doesn't move. And every day it stays, the ground underneath bakes a little more. This particular heat dome settled over Western Europe in late June, and it has refused to budge. France just recorded its hottest day since record-keeping began back in 1947, 111 degrees Fahrenheit. And Germany hit a new national record of nearly 107 degrees. The UK broke its all-time June heat record 3 days in a row. This isn't just a heat wave. Scientists are calling it a historic climate event. And it's not just France. Germany hit a national record of 106 degrees in the east of the country, with reports of autobahns literally buckling in the heat. Italy issued red alerts in 18 major cities, including Rome, Milan, and Venice. Spain and Portugal have been baking under nearly identical conditions for weeks. This heat dome didn't just hit one country of the way, it rolled across an entire continent like a wave, country after country, breaking record after record. By the time the heat reached Austria, temperatures were climbing past 97 degrees in the capital alone. Belgium saw highs near 102. And as the heat dome kept drifting east, it pulled in Poland, Slovakia, and even parts of the Balkans. Entire regions that don't typically deal with extreme heat at all were suddenly issuing their first ever heat warnings of the year. But the numbers on a map don't tell the real story. The real story is what's happening to people. The health agency reported around 1,000 excess deaths during the peak of this heat wave, hurting most of them among people over 65. Ambulance services responded to more than 120,000 emergency calls in just over a week. Hospitals are overwhelmed. And here's the cruelest part, Sayed. Many of the people most at risk are the ones living alone, with no air conditioning. In one apartment building outside Paris, neighbors told local reporters they hadn't seen an elderly resident in days. When they finally checked on her, she'd been overcome by heat exhaustion inside her own apartment. Toupee, no fan, no AC. Stories like this have been repeating across the country. This is the side of a heat wave that doesn't show up in a weather forecast.
This is something that genuinely caught my attention. In the US, even during extreme summer heat, most homes have some form of air conditioning. It's simply part of how people live there.
But across Europe, the situation is completely different. Less than 5% of homes in countries like France and Germany have any central cooling system at all. Buildings were designed for insulation against the cold, not protection from extreme heat. So when a heat dome like this rolls in, no infrastructure built to handle it. The houses themselves become ovens.
And it doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Meteorologists call these tropical nights, when the temperature doesn't drop below 68 degrees, even at 3 in the morning. Normally, your body gets a window overnight to cool down and recover. During this heat wave, that window disappeared completely in some cities. People weren't sleeping.
Hospitals saw a spike in heart attacks and strokes because your body never got the chance to reset.
Even the infrastructure outside people's homes started buckling. In Belgium, electricity prices spiked to over $1 per kilowatt hour at one point, as everyone across the country cranked their AC units at the exact same time, maxing out the power grid. Major outdoor events got canceled. Concerts, festivals, even a centuries-old historical reenactment got called off because organizers couldn't guarantee anyone's safety in the heat. Even a major music festival had to shut down, though in that case it was actually the storms that followed the heat that caused it. It's not just power grids. Rail lines in France had to slow down trains because tracks can warp under extreme heat. Roads buckled in parts of Germany. Even simple things like grocery deliveries, construction work, outdoor school activities too. An entire continent essentially had to slow down and adapt in real time. And the heat brought a second danger with it, fire. With the ground bone dry and humidity at record lows, wildfire across eastern Germany and parts of the Mediterranean. Fire crews have been stretched thin, jumping from one blaze to the next, while officials in country after country issued red alerts for extreme fire danger. Some farmers have reported losing entire fields of crops, with droughts compounding the damage on top of the heat itself.
Walking through these streets in the middle of the day feels surreal. Cafes that would normally be packed are empty.
Shutters are closed. The few people outside are moving quickly, hugging the shade, carrying water bottles like it's a survival item packed. You can genuinely feel the heat radiating up off the pavement. It's not just hot, it feels hostile. I spoke with a few locals while I was out here. One shop owner told me he's lived in this city his whole life and has never seen anything like this. Another person said her parents used to tell her stories about a famous heat wave back in the 1970s COVID, and this one has already blown past that by a wide margin. There's a real sense of disbelief here, like people are watching their own city become unrecognizable. Here's what really gets me. Climate scientists have been warning about this exact scenario for years. Heat waves becoming more frequent, more intense, and heat waves becoming more frequent, more intense, and arriving earlier in the year. Europe is actually the fastest warming continent on Earth, warming at roughly twice the global average. What used to be a once-in-a-generation extreme event is starting to look like it could become a regular summer occurrence. This heat wave isn't an anomaly. According to climate researchers, it's a preview. Already you can see the shift starting. Demand for air conditioners across Europe has exploded this year, and companies that manufacture them say they can't keep up. Cities are starting to talk about updating building codes that have stayed the same for decades. It's a slow, expensive adjustment And honestly, going through this made me appreciate something I never thought about back home. We complain about hot summers in the US, but most of us can walk inside, turn a dial, and the problem disappears. Here, that option just doesn't exist for most people. It made me realize how much of our comfort is infrastructure we never even think about until it's gone.
Standing here, watching the sun finally go down after a day like this, it's hard not to think about what this really means.
If Europe is struggling to keep up with extreme heat, the real question is, how much longer until the rest of us are facing the exact same thing?